The world is actually engulfed in evil. In fact, we actually allow it every day, all around the world, and we don't see it. It's this unconscious pattern, as Dr. Carl Jung focuses on that shadow, the unconscious, what we're projecting and that we don't see, and what R.J. Rummel, a professor, talks about in his powerful works concerning the number one cause of unnatural death. These two, who go into the psychology of things, have not really been taught in our current schooling system and in general within the world, because their ideas are radical, we may say, ideas that challenge the status quo and challenge our current mindsets, because we don't want to see our own shadow. We don't want to see that we may be contributing to evil. But what is that evil and how do we get rid of it? This is the results of secular statism. Let's get into it.
I'm an abolitionist.
We're going to continue our study into the nature of statism and political servitude as found in The Undiscovered Self by Dr. Carl Jung. Last week we discovered that the development of secularism, which is that which is not religious, doesn't stop humans from worshiping. The drive to worship is a human psychological necessity, an undeniable drive built directly into the human mind. When a society secularizes and everyone is an atheist, the drive to worship doesn't disappear. Worship is merely transferred from God or gods to new secular institutions. And Carl Jung tells us that this worship almost always is given to the state, the political and government powers, which rule the nation and promise to solve all the problems of mortality in order to usher in an earthly paradise. This week we continue to explore how the process of secularization doesn't lead to an atheist utopia. It leads to the worship of the cult of the state. From Dr. Carl Jung, The Undiscovered Self, let's look at page 54. Far too little attention has been paid to the fact that our age, for all its irreligiousness, is hereditarily burdened with the specific achievement of the Christian epoch. The supremacy of the word, of the logos, which stands for the central figure of our Christian faith. The word has literally become our God, and so it has remained, even if we know of Christianity only from hearsay. Words like society and state are so concretized that they are almost personified. In the opinion of the man on the street, the state, far more than any king in history, is the inexhaustible giver of all good. The state is invoked, made responsible, grumbled at, and so on and so forth. Society is elevated to the rank of a supreme ethical principle. Indeed, it is credited with positively creative capacities. End quote. So you may have heard of the word logos, and that is known as the divine reason implicit in the cosmos, ordering it and giving it form and meaning. That definition is from the Britannica. This ancient Grecian concept became the basic for the Western ideal of the nature and meaning of all creation. With the advent of Christianity, the logos became the revelation of the purpose, power, and nature of reality as manifested in the person of Jesus Christ, the Word or Logos of God. And you can see John 1:1 for that. Thus, the Logos was literally God, and the Logos is Christ, and Christ is God. Therefore, in the Logos, in the Word of God, could one find all meaning and purpose. And though our modern age seems to increasingly pride itself on secularism, it has, as Jung explained, inherited this religious reliance upon a singular word to be the organizing and meaning-giving principle of all existence. Today, it is not Jesus which acts as the primary vehicle for meaning. It is the state. The state, with its endless bureaucracies and seemingly limitless supply of functionaries, with its universal presence in human life, with its all-knowing prophetic politicians, with its claim to inexhaustible wealth, with its seemingly endless power to reorganize all of life and society on the whims of the political elite, It is the state which tells us our place in society, our purpose in existing, that determines when and where we live, and claims the authority to dictate to us everything from who and how we can love to what we can eat or drink or even how we can die. It is the state which tells us who to love and who to hate. From childhood, we are indoctrinated into its ideology and taught to excommunicate as apostate traitors those who question its authority. All that good comes from it, and to question it is to be heretic, to be derided in the worst terms the present age can muster. Racist, homophobe, sexist, transphobe, greedy, callous, hateful, grandma killer, etc., no matter how its actions destroy your individual life. The logos of the present day, the God of the modern age, has become the state itself, and founded upon human sacrifice, it is the bloodliest God that has ever ruled. The 20th century has saw a steady decline in religion all through its later half, while agnosticism and atheism have only grown. And you can see this in the work Decline of Christianity Continues. We live in an increasingly secular age, an age which has saw more blood and horror than any before it. In his work Power Kills, Dr. R.J. Rummel studied the mass murders of the 20th century, and all of them were secular states, with the worst being the atheist nations. At least 61,911,000 people were slaughtered by the secular socialist regime of the Soviet Union. Between 35 million and 45 million were murdered by the atheist socialist Chinese regime under Mao alone. The secular National Socialist in Germany murdered over 20 million. The secular nationalist in China murdered over 10 million before losing to Mao's socialist forces. And you can see the Power Kills website maintained by the University of Hawaii for more examples. And in these few secular and atheistic nations alone, we see between 151 million and 161 million people murdered in some of the most horrific, brutal, evil manners possible. Why? Because the worship of the state leads to subservience and obedience to it. In pursuit of its promises of secular perfection, Eden on earth, nothing is forbidden and everything is permissible. When you eliminate God, that means there is no higher authority than the government, and the difference between good and evil rests upon its whims. And the whims of the state are always towards increasing its power. If a few people die, so what? You can't have paradise without breaking a few eggs or skulls. The result of the deification of the government has been the greatest suffering and slaughter ever seen in all of human history, both in quantities and qualities. The secular cult of the state is one built on human sacrifice in a quantity that would have put the Aztecs and Mayans to shame. So, this was an article written by William H. Douglas from the LatterdayLiberator.com, and what is he really getting into here? You know, I tell you guys I'm not very much a religious individual. You can look at the foundations of governments. They're built upon war, they're built upon slavery, and some of them are claiming we have the divine right to rule you because God said so, so you can see how they're kind of mixed with religion. But there's a big distinction that Carl Jung is making to us, as we've talked about in this series. He's telling us that religion could be used as the most dangerous tool against the people when it's merged with the state, when the state acts as religion and takes control of the religions. But when the religions are freely used by individuals, not for the state's agenda, it is the most powerful bulwark against the state. And that's what Carl Jung told us. And so when we look at the numbers that Rummel brings up, tens of hundreds of millions of deaths from governments, and then we look at how governments are portrayed to us as a protector of individual rights, can we really say that it does protect our rights? That it does prevent war and conflict when it quite literally needs war and conflict to be created? And even when a revolution or a civil war takes place, it takes a war to create another government. And it's just a never-ending cycle of tyranny and democide and chaos. What if that's not actually what we can do in this world to create a better condition? Because quite literally, when we say we need a new system, we need a new law, we need new politicians, we're saying we need another new form of chaos. We need a civil war, which requires a war. So we're saying we need war, we need battles. Well, I'm not saying we need a battle. I'm not saying we need a war. I'm saying we need an awakening, an enlightenment, a moral suasion, as the abolitionists talked about, and they did not want a civil war. They actually were convincing people, saying slavery is wrong, we gotta end it now. And that was a change in heart and mind. If people still believed in it, they would still do it, regardless of what the law said. Because it's what they had inside their hearts and minds. It's what they believed to be true and not true. So if you truly see that you are connected, or that there's higher laws, natural laws, that there are rules present within the universe, where is the place for these man-made rules and rituals and these people telling you how to live your own life? Which you and God is your guide, nature's your guide, these rules, moral principles, self-ownership, this is your guide. If you don't have that as your guide, then easily somebody will take control of your life and say, I'll be your guide for you. And you have to depend on me for the answers. But no, you don't have to depend on anyone. If God is ever present and all around you, and only you can have that direct connection with him. And, same thing with these natural laws, they're universal, they're not granted to you. Like, only you get to have natural laws. No, natural laws apply to everyone, right? So this is the idea, and this is why that concept exists. This is why this concept of God exists in many ways, is to see this alternative to the systems that be, and is the reason why a lot of religious figures were persecuted throughout the ages, why they were attacked, and why the states were always at conflict with these religions, and watching their growth, and making sure that they follow their narrative. So, these are just some questions to bear in mind. That better world that we can achieve, not through war, can be achieved through voluntarism, which is moral suasion, which is understanding morality without contradiction. So I'm going to put these questions on the screen for you. I want you to pause the video and think about it, okay? And I share this in a lot of my videos, so if you're new to my videos, that's great. If you're not new, you're like, oh man, this thing again. But you get the point. If we are stuck in this system of thinking this is the way we must do things, then that's what we're going to get. But if we start to change the paradigm and get people thinking about questions they never asked themselves, then we might actually see a real revolution for once. Thank you very much for watching. This is Corey Angelot. Go to theliberator.us. Send us your article. I'll turn it into a video for you. Thank you for watching.